I was out seeing a band with my best friend. We're waiting for Ubers at the end of the night, and he's looking at 538.com going, man, have you seen this? We got it locked up tomorrow. And I said, dude, have you been following what's going on back in Missouri? Because we both went to school there. I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know. And especially living almost 20 years as a coastal elite, which, believe me, I haven't been anything near elite, but by virtue of living in Los Angeles, I guess I get that title. But I understand the idea of the flyover states and the angry, the ignored, the forgotten Americans. But Samantha Bede did a great segment on her show this week with the real forgotten Americans, which were blue collar minorities,
right?
Who did not vote for Trump,
right? Mm-hmm.
And I think there is a segment of the population out there who is smart enough to know that whatever breadcrumbs they are getting as a result of the policies of the Trump administration are not enough to live on, to sustain them, but most importantly, to prove that trickle-down economics works. It doesn't. And, while the poor and the lower middle class are going to see short-term gains from the Republican tax scam, it's just enough for them to scam you and get out of town while you still think you've got a great deal. It's why I tell people, if you ever notice, outlet malls are conveniently located far enough from major metropolitan centers that it's not that inconvenient to drive to them. But when you get home with all the stuff you bought and realize how irregular it actually is, it's too far to drive back and return it.
Right. But like you were saying about the forgotten Americans. Yeah, whenever they do these stories about, the real America and the forgotten Americans, the heartland, it's always white people. And and you're supposed to feel sorry for them and have understanding for them. This is why they voted for Trump. Well, if the white people have it that bad, think of the people of color, how bad they must have it there, but that's never talked about. Yeah,
well, it's, one quote that has been brought up a lot more recently than it had in previous years, and a lot more than it should have since it was first said. But I think it was Lyndon Johnson who said, you make the poorest white man feel like he's better than any black man, and, you've got him by the heart, mind, and soul.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, that is human nature. Everybody, people, well, you need to get to the cause of racism. You know what the cause is? People suck. Yeah. That's what the cause is. And if you've got a visual signifier like the color of someone's skin, that is going to be used as a cause for division. It's like I was saying earlier, even though I have greatly benefited from white privilege because I look the way I do and I have an anglicized surname, Robinson, how vanilla, middle of the road does it get? When I worked in radio, I don't know how many people would the number of people who badgered me to find out my real last name, because they always thought David Robinson sounds so made up. It has to be my fake air name. No. What's on your driver's license? David Robinson. Okay, what's on your birth certificate before you change? David Robinson. That's been my name the whole time. But and I've had this conversation with black friends of mine that, you're lucky in the sense that when someone is a racist right up front because they show you. Me, it's, sometimes, months down the line, when the holidays come up that, wait a minute, you're one of them? You've been lying to me this whole time? I was like, no, I haven't been lying to anybody. I never really came up, the fact that I'm Jewish and you seem to like me just fine. We got along well until you knew that, so,
well, I feel better now, David. I didn't feel lucky about.
Well, it's not like, hey, you're lucky to experience racism, but that you get it right up front. It's like, you don't need to see someone wearing an Ed Hardy or Affliction t-shirt to know, it's like they tell you they're an asshole right up front. With me, sometimes they wait.
Well, I'll say for me, sometimes I do get that too because I'm kind of ambiguous. So there may be somebody who is racist, but they're like maybe
they don't know what to call you specifically.
Exactly. There's that. Or there may be people who are like racist against black people specifically. You know what I mean? And then, when they find out that I'm black, they're like, oh. It's like, oh, you tricked me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the big conspiracy is to trick racists into liking people of color by not quite being clearly of a specific.
Yeah, that's why all these people are mad at Colin Kaepernick. They were like, hey, wait a minute, he tricked us. Yeah.
We just thought it was a hairstyle, man. Failed. But yeah, so. It's you want to get to the cause of racism. It's that people suck, and people need to stop doing that.
Yeah. But unfortunately, we have a president who encourages people to suck. So
by example, even. And so and one of the big issues because we've got like less than 10 minutes. The big story this weekend is that the government has shut down for the first time in 4 years. Once again, masterminded by the Republicans, to use the term mastermind very loosely. It's shocking. One of the things, and I am glad to see by the headlines this morning that members of Congress are hard at work trying to reopen the government and come to some sort of an agreement by Monday. But one of the things that really pisses me off about the government shutdown and the previous ones that we experienced is that members of Congress, unlike any other government employee, still get paid throughout the shutdown. Now, if you are a government employee who has been furloughed because of the shutdown, normally back pay is involved. So you do get the money. But if you're living paycheck to paycheck, or, it's the 20th, if this thing goes another 11 days, you might be really fucked when it comes to paying your rent at the beginning of February. Members of Congress aren't going to have that problem. So I think, and we've said this, I think on this show, maybe on the cause effect, which we were doing before, but, we've talked about healthcare for Congress people. Let's make sure that Congress gets the least of the healthcare plans that is available to the American people through Medicare or whatever. These people make a shitload of money. A lot of them had a shitload of money before they went into politics. If they want a better plan, they can afford to buy it on their own.
Right.
But let's make them, at least on the baseline, live as well as the poorest Americans can. During a government shutdown, if it is shut down because of your malfeasance as a congressperson, you should not be getting paid. The Republicans talk about wanting to incentivize immigration, wanting to incentivize healthcare. Trump signed an executive order that states can now put a work requirement on receiving Medicare. So if you want to make Americans live by these standards, then you, as a congressperson, as an employee of the American people, should get no more than the least of your constituents.
Right.
It's only right. It's only fair. And honestly, I think if you put these restrictions on Congress, they are going to work a hell of a lot harder.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm talking liberals. I'm talking Republicans, Democrats, folks like Rand Paul, who you run as a Republican, but I don't know what the fuck you are. You're a greedy son of a bitch. Folks like Bernie Sanders, who you run as a Democrat, but you're a socialist. All of you. And I think Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, and there are a number of people in Congress who would back this.
Yeah.
And it only makes sense. You know, we see CEO and executive pay going up exponentially while the employees are seeing wage stagnation. The female employees are seeing wage stagnation and a gender gap in their pay. If you are going to run for office, if you are going to represent the people of America, you should have nothing more than the least of them do as a part of your job. I'm not saying we should strip, I mean, Daryl Issa, made a shitload of money robbing, breaking into cars and robbing cars before he made even more money selling car alarms to protect people from people like him. And then he went to Congress and just sort of started the scam again on a much larger scale. I'm not saying he should be stripped of his riches going into office, although there is a certain amount to be said for that. It's a lovely idea.
Yeah.
But we have a hard enough time getting qualified people to run for office because they're afraid of the skeletons. That's actually the one possible benefit of the Trump presidency, is that maybe now people who, have done drugs or, slept with hookers or done whatever aren't going to be so quick to say, nope, not running for office, skeletons in the closet that are going to come out.
Right?
Because there are a lot of qualified people who have sketchy pasts or who have done things that they know can be spun into a shady past.
Right, yeah.
This president seems to be beyond that. So maybe we will get more qualified candidates who are possibly more qualified because they know what it is to live a sketchy life, and they know what's going on. They are in touch with the man on the street, so to speak.
Yeah.
But until then, until America is willing to extend the courtesy to those people that they have extended thus far to, grab them by the pussy, draft dodging, mob ties, Russian tool Donald Trump. Until then, why don't we have Congress pass some laws saying that we will accept no more from this job than the least of our constituents is able to get?
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, man. Yeah. Hit them in their wallets. It's the only thing they understand.
Yeah, and you know what? Instead of term limits on these jobs, and this actually, as the thoughts coming to mind, might actually backfire, because then you get rich people who stay with the job because they can afford to, and just keep looking out for rich people. But unemployment benefits run out, when the money that you've paid into the system runs out. So instead of term limits, here's the cap on what you are going to make as a senator or a representative. If you run through all that money in, 1 year's time, well, good luck with your second year, But yeah, I think that if we make Congress work under the financial constraints that most Americans have to, we're going to see change come about real quick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I understand, violent uprising does have its place. There are things that we do not find palatable in society, but you got to admit they work. I'm from Chicago, a city of graft and corruption. But the thing that, when I grew up, and I know things have changed under Rahm Emanuel and the leadership up to him, but the thing about corruption in Chicago was there was a certain amount that was acceptable because it made the city run well. And then every few years, you have a scandal that clears out a lot of politicians, gets rid of the folks in the no work city jobs, and you get back to the regular levels of graft.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like the mafia or the CIA or the Mossad, you know, or garbage men. There's shit that people don't want to do, but you kind of got to admit it's got to get done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And things just kind of work better. So you hold your nose and you let it happen. And when it gets too bad, then you rise up, you know. So there is a certain amount of corruption that